Joining us online is Matt Taibbi, former writer at Rolling Stone, editor of TK News Substack, and apparently a radical right-winger. And we found this out because he was the journalist who broke a lot of the material from the Twitter files. Elon Musk turned over a lot of the old files from Twitter under the auspices of Jack Dorsey and Vijay Gadde and Yoel Roth and all the rest of the Wonder team over there. And Matt was able to break a pretty major story here. So Matt, first of all, why don't we start by talking about that major story? What was your big takeaway from the files that you've seen from Twitter?
I think there are two. The first one, the big one for me, is that we have concrete proof that the government and specifically agencies like the FBI and the DHS are in the censorship business. They are buying and flagging content in huge quantities and sending them back to platforms like Twitter to be moderated. And we have absolute proof of that, documentary proof. The other thing is the Barry Weiss revelations about shadow banning. I think people had suspicions about that, but we now know that they not only do it, but they have an extraordinarily intricate system that allows them to either limit someone's visibility all the way to zero or amplify it as much as they want. So what you're seeing on social media is really a heavily distorted version of reality. So,
Matt, you reported on some of the places that were being shadow banned. Obviously, it was Twitter saying they weren't shadow banning. They were kind of using the Dr. Fauci gain of function distinction without a distinction routine. They were saying, well, shadow banning is really when you just tweet out there, but nobody can see it. But it's not shadow banning if we just tremendously reduce your reach and make it nearly impossible for anybody to see you, which, of course, is what we all mean when we say shadow banning. And then you got the usual routine from the journalistic outlets. And this is the part that really was astonishing to me. So there was obviously the revelation that everything we had suspected about Twitter was true, that they were discriminating against certain content creators. I mean, I just noticed that since Elon Musk took over, I gained 1 million followers in about 1 month after Elon Musk took over, which means that, the account had to be actively suppressed. There's no other reason why I'd get him. I wasn't that great this month on Twitter. So, something happened. But,
by the way, I can interrupt you. You had a case in what they call SIP-PES, which is the Supreme Court of moderation. I actually saw your page. I may be breaking news here, but I saw the Ben Shapiro page. They actually decided in that case not to slam you, but for sure you were being discussed.
Yeah, I would have been shocked if I had not been. I was always extremely careful on Twitter as to what I thought their standards were, and so I tended to use sarcasm instead of just straight out saying what I meant in many cases. So instead of getting banned for saying that a man is a man and a woman is a woman, I would say that a man who said that he was a woman was in fact the most womanly woman that had ever woman, and so that was my sort of end around to get around the Twitter rules while the tyranny was in place. But what was really astonishing is after you broke all this material, you would imagine that the journalistic outlets who are interested in speaking truth to power might actually be mildly interested in the fact that one of the world's largest social media platforms was being manipulated from both the inside and the outside, in some cases by governmental forces that were manipulating people inside Twitter by telling them that there was misinformation, disinformation coming from abroad. They probably should do something about that in sort of this broad Henry II, will no one rid me of this meddlesome priest kind of way. And then at the same time, from inside the company, where you had activists who were essentially overwriting their own policies in order to specifically pick and choose who should be banned. You'd imagine that people in the media who supposedly are in favor of free speech would be in favor of this. Instead, they got very angry at you for having reported the story at all. It's hard for me to tell whether that's professional jealousy because they wish that Musk had actually gone to them, or whether they are so ideologically committed to the idea that these platforms need to be policed by their political allies that they are actually angry that it's now been revealed that was what was happening.
Yeah, it's hard to divine. Maybe some of it's professional jealousy. I think a lot of it is more just hive mind narrative policing. This story doesn't fit neatly into a category that they would like. I know old school journalists would have been very interested in this story because we're getting a look at stuff that you never get to see. Like how does the FBI and the DHS and the CISA and all these other agencies that operate behind the scenes, What are they really doing in their communications with companies like Twitter? We're getting a firsthand look at that in a way that you would never get to see in a normal proceeding. So that's fascinating, and the fact that they're ignoring it, I think, it's really more of a burn on them than they realize. I mean, I think the rest of the country sees that and just laughs mostly.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think is so amazing here is, again, members of the media who started attacking you as right wing for having the temerity to report what was exclusive material that was given to you, which is the way that reporting gets done. Somebody gives you a piece of material, and regardless of your political persuasion, if that thing is newsworthy, you then report on it, and you were giving the raw sources. It wasn't as though Elon Musk was going through and filtering all of this stuff. He basically, it sounds like, just handed you a giant tranche of information, and now it was your job to go through it and sort of sift through it and figure out what it was. And in fact, the only person, it appears, who was going through and sort of trying to prevent information from getting out ended up being the lawyer Jim Baker, who had formerly worked for the FBI, correct?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There was another figure in there who also got kind of moved out, but yeah, Baker. The first batch of files that we got, I could tell what I was looking at were probably documents preserved pursuant to a couple of different litigations. But it looked like a comprehensive set of everything that was related to the Hunter Biden issue, so I didn't really think twice about it. Then we moved on to a different system where we were basically just given computers and allowed to search all kinds of stuff. And it certainly wasn't cherry picked for us. That's for sure.
I mean, so one of the things that the critique of you that emerged, obviously, in the social media world from the journalists who said they were going to leave Twitter but then didn't, their main critique of you seemed to be, you're doing the bidding of the world's richest man or the world's second richest man. You corporate stooge you. And again, welcome to the club, Matt. Now that you're a rabid right-winger like me, I hope that you enjoy the water. We've been in here for quite a while. But it's very funny to watch as all these journalists who work for corporate outlets that are owned by extraordinarily rich people. I mean, you have people from the Washington Post owned by Jeff Bezos, or you have the New York Times owned by the Sulzberger family. And you have these people who are tweeting at you, how dare you take information from Elon Musk and put it out there? You've now become a paid-for contributor, basically, to Elon Musk. Number one, how do you respond to that?
Well, first of all, I mean, it's just funny. I actually laughed out loud when I saw somebody from Bloomberg giving me a hard time and using that line. I mean, if you work for Mike Bloomberg permanently and you're going to give me a hard time about doing one story for, in conjunction with Elon Musk, that's just laughable. But as journalists, we don't care where the material comes from as long as it's true. We can verify its authenticity and we can verify that it's newsworthy. I also, I happen to think that Elon Musk's motives in this particular instance are genuine. I haven't had any evidence to the contrary. I mean, he seems genuinely interested in transparency. He seems to have a genuine distaste for certain kinds of internet censorship, and I think that's probably where this is coming from. So, until I see otherwise, I'm just gonna look at the documents and do what any journalist would do in this situation and just investigate.
So, Matt, when you look at the people who are sort of the bad actors inside Twitter, one of the things that I talked about after looking at the files that you released and your releases on the files and Barry's and Michael Schellenberger's, one of the things that I came away with is that Twitter transformed itself over the course of its lifespan from a place that was supposed to be the town square for public discussion. We all remember this one because when we first started, it was a Wild West. I mean, you could pretty much say anything on there. You could make whatever jokes you want. Nobody cared. It was a much more casual place. Now, obviously, we all police each other and we go back 10 years and find the tweets from the Wild West period and we try to destroy each other and all of this. But when Twitter first started, it really was sort of the town square mentality. You can say whatever you want. It can be as wild as you want it to be. And it was mainly what I would characterize as sort of an engineering culture. It's like, how do we engineer the town square? And then over time, it became pretty clear from all of this material that it was not about engineering a town square anymore, because the people who were not the engineers were actually in control of the policy. You had the actual people who were in charge of trying to, for example, cleanse the pornography or cleanse the child sex abuse stuff from Twitter, and they were trying to come up with algorithms. And then meanwhile, you had the actual political hacks, people like Yoel Roth and Vijaya Gadde, who are not engineers, really, sitting there and almost like a Cotty under a tree, deciding what to ban and what not to ban. It was almost a change in culture that took place. And meanwhile, Jack Dorsey basically just took off to a cave in Malaysia or something and was vacationing the whole time.
Yeah. Oh, I had somebody describe Dorsey as being more like the company's spirit animal than its CEO at one point. But no, what's interesting about the company is the way it was structured is that the vast majority of the moderation was done on kind of an automated rules-based basis. It was done by the operations department, which was staffed by a lot of people, and they were kind of lower level. And then there was a level above that where you had all these executives, and that's where you start to see all this weird, subjective, clearly politicized, or even just idiosyncratic human intervention in regular tweets. And the odd thing is they're doing it with tweets that have like 0 engagement or 2 followers. Like it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me why these people would be involved in that stuff, but they were. And look, if there had been a lot of stuff like requests from the Trump White House to zap this or that, and I had seen that, I would have reported it. I just didn't see it. It was all kind of in another direction.
It's amazing stuff. Well, Matt Taibbi, you did an amazing job reporting this. I'm sure there's much more to come. I mean, I'll ask you now. I mean, is there a lot more to come? I assume there's going to be more.
Yeah, there's going to be some interesting stuff. There are people searching right now for all kinds of things, and we're trying to sort out what the best stuff to put out next is. But yeah, there's going to be more for sure.
It's really fascinating stuff. That's Matt Taibbi, former writer at the Rolling Stone and editor of TK News Substack. And obviously, welcome to the vast right-wing conspiracy.
This one is great.
It's absurd. Matt Taibbi, really appreciate the time. How's this for a title? Ben Shapiro Show subscriber destroys like button with clicks and logic. I'd watch that. Make it happen, gang.